Okay, so good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you to Art with Liz, sponsored by the Hoboken Library, which, as always, has been incredibly generous in allowing us to have these wonderful art classes here in the beautifully renovated space of the library, and also for people who are at home in the comfort of their own workspace. And we've been doing this ever since COVID-19, so we've been in operation for quite a while. Thank you, Hoboken Public Library. We are celebrating Latin and Latino and Latina American History Month in the month of October and November. And we have been focusing on several different Latin American and Latino and Latina American artists. We start each class with a slideshow of the artist's work, talk about their work, and then I present an art project for you to do, hopefully inspired by this particular artist's work. Today, we're looking at a really, I think, extraordinary artist. His name is Guadalupe Maravilla. I think he is the perfect artist for our time because Guadalupe is not only an artist and a choreographer, he is also a healer. He's led a very interesting life. You know how people talk about a life being a journey? Guadalupe's life has literally been a fascinating journey. He was born in 1976 in El Salvador, and his early years were quite happy and wonderful. But then, as he started growing up, his country entered into a horrible civil war. And things became more and more dangerous for his family. Things became more and more violent and difficult for his family. His parents were forced to leave him behind in San Salvador, and they fled to the United States. He was only 8 years old, and he was terrified. Can you imagine? Only 8 years old, and he was left behind. I'm assuming, I don't even know, I'm assuming with other relatives while they had to flee because I'm assuming of political reasons. At that age, that tender age, he fled on his own, unaccompanied, with undocumented children. They were part of the first wave of undocumented, unaccompanied children to cross the border into the United States. This was in the early 1980s, and he did it by land. So he went through Guatemala, Mexico, and then crossed the border into the United States. It took him 2.5 months. He was 8 years old. This was a trauma for him, an incredible journey. So this was in 1984. He was alone, escorted by a coyote, and he was reunited with his family in New York City. No, he was in 1984. He was reunited with his family. It took 2.5 months for him to get here. So the same year he left, 2.5 months later, he was reunited with his family. But he was alone in the passage from El Salvador through Guatemala, Mexico, into the United States. He crossed at the Texas border and then somehow made it through the United States to New York. Okay, let's open up the slideshow. We're going to first look at the slideshow, and then I'm going to share a really fantastic videotape from Art 21 about his work. So once in New York City, he started attending art school when he was older and exploring different aspects of New York culture, including things like hip hop. And sharing is not turned on, Laura, for some reason. If you could enable that for us. He became a citizen in 2016, at which point he adopted the name Guadalupe Maravilla. I don't know what his original name was Irvin Morazon. And in 2016, he adopted the name Guadalupe Maravilla. His father had adopted the last name Maravilla because he became a Jehovah's Witness, and it had some religious significance to the father. He was a recovering alcoholic, and a Jehovah's Witness apparently saved him from alcoholism. His mother venerated the Virgin of Guadalupe, and that's why he chose that name. Thank you. Laura has enabled share for us. And here we go. Folks at home, I hope you can see. Can someone let me know? Susan, thank you. So here we go. Let me explain something about his work. It is different, very different. He, in 2012, became a victim of cancer. He believes he became afflicted with cancer because of the childhood trauma that he went through. And he started making these sculptures and installations that he calls disease throwers. And they're really incredible, I believe. And he makes them out of cast aluminum. And he believes they have this power to help overcome illness. He has himself overcome cancer, and he's now spending his life using his art to help cure other people. So when you see his work, keep in mind that these images that you're going to look at are portraying his disease throwers. He's also heavily influenced by Maya art and culture. El Salvador was part of the Maya, how can I put it, civilization. The Maya were a large group of people that we've talked about in the past who had a thriving civilization with amazing art, language, and rich religious heritage. And they created extraordinary art that you're going to see some of in the video that I'm going to show you later. So this is one of his disease throwers. Much of what is in this sculpture comes from objects that he's gone back to Mexico to collect. So he has gone back to the escape route that he took from El Salvador through Mexico and collected objects along the escape route that he took to incorporate into the sculpture that he now makes. As always, if there's any comment that you have about his work, please share it with the rest of us.
It's not clear.
I know, it's very blurry, unfortunately. I'm sorry.
What type of objects are in the picture?
So they're good question. Thank you. The objects, most of them come from nature. There are pieces of wood, there are shells, there are feathers, but there are also objects that he makes from cast aluminum. Like I said, he also collects detritus and garbage that he sees along the way that he finds interesting. So there are glass objects, sometimes there are tin objects that he finds along the way as well. He also uses plaster sometimes in the work as a binding material. Instruments that he finds, broken instruments that people have dropped along the way, etc. I'm hoping the rest of the slides are not quite so blurry.
Liz is muted again.
We can't hear anything at home.
I don't think she's talking right now.
Oh,
Okay, 1 second.
All right, sorry, folks. When I'm in share, it's very difficult to find my mouse. So thank you for bearing with us. Thank you, Laura, for your technical assistance. So we're going to start back where we were. Folks, you can still see the slideshow, I hope. Yes? Yes. Thank you, Susan, for letting me know. All right, so this piece is made primarily of the cast aluminum that Maravilla is so very drawn to. So his work is very autobiographical, and he is nurturing the collective narratives of trauma into celebrations of perseverance and humanity. He explores how the systemic abuse of immigrants physically manifests in the body, and he uses these sculpture as part of his healing ceremonies. He also does sound healing. You see that there are these large symbols. There was one in the first piece that I showed you and one in this. And you're going to see in the video that I hope to show you in a bit how he uses sound in his installation ceremonies. They're all integral to his work. He is an artist in residence at the Brooklyn Museum, where he has these healing events, and he incorporates gongs and performers to create sound baths. And he's been doing this since 2020. He works at Socrates Sculpture Park. I'm not sure if that's in the Bronx or Brooklyn. If someone wants to look that up to tell us where that's located, that would be helpful.
Queens.
Queens. Thank you.
Right on the corner.
This one has a hammock in the top. I love that. There's a huge conch shell, one of my favorite images. I've used it often in my own work. This one's kind of fierce looking, right? Yes, there's a hammock on the top. I just said that. Yep. I love this one. So this one is wrapped in this plaster gauzy stuff. Again, you're going to see him actually using it in the videotape. He incorporates wood, feathers, shells, other things that he finds. His work has entered the permanent collections of the Museum of Modern Art, the Whitney Museum of American Art, etc. Museo Nacional Centro de Arte, Vienna, Sofia in Madrid, the Institute of Contemporary Art in Miami. He is now a citizen of the United States. This one I think is quite pretty. The clawed feet are interesting, right? This one reminds me of the African-American artist Nick Cage, who creates his sound suits. So there is definitely a correlation between Nick Cage and Guadalupe Maravilla. Again, his work is about healing and recovery from disease and illness, which he explains in his video. Quite all right. So if you know anything about Maya culture, and if you have been anywhere to see Maya ruins, they have created things called stela. And the stela are large rock vertical sculpture in which they carve faces and hieroglyphs. And this piece reminds me very much of the Maya stela. You can see where much of his inspiration comes from. All right. So we are going to now watch the video. Do I have to discuss the technical thing we're going to do, Laura? With everyone? I don't think they'll notice even.
No, they won't. You actually. You can let them know when you transition.
Okay. So we are